Welcome to the Love Justice Podcast, where we hear from different voices who are joining us in the fight against modern-day slavery. Please welcome the host of the Love Justice Podcast, Hannah Munn. Today, Hannah is joined by Jason Dukes and special guest, Justin Donald.
Welcome to the Love Justice Podcast, where we share the ideas behind Love Justice's impactful work through conversations about fighting the world's greatest injustices. In today's episode, we are joined by Justin Donald, entrepreneur, investor, and author of the #1 Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling book, The Lifestyle Investor: The 10 Commandments of Cash Flow Investing for Passive Income and Financial Freedom. The book is now in the top 1% of all books ever sold, with 100% of the proceeds donated to the Tim Tebow Foundation and Love Justice International, two organizations fighting human trafficking in over 30 countries. Called the Warren Buffett of lifestyle investing by Entrepreneur Magazine, Justin is known for mastering low-risk cash flow investing and helping others create financial freedom without creating another job. After building enough passive income to retire before his 37th birthday, he turned his focus to helping others live with purpose and generosity. In today's conversation, we explore what it looks like to shift from building wealth to deploying it meaningfully. We talk about how Justin evaluates return on investment in the nonprofit space, what he calls the brokenhearted anointing, and how community, discernment, and storytelling shape his approach to giving. For anyone in the nonprofit space, hearing about how someone evaluates nonprofit ROI, this conversation is for you and very insightful and very helpful. So without further ado, let's get into it.
Well, hey, Justin Donald, welcome to the Love Justice Podcast. We are so glad you're here. And let's just jump right in. Why don't you start by telling our listeners, who is Justin Donald?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. And Hannah, thanks for having me on. I appreciate joining you here. And I'm a fan of your podcast. I've gotten a chance to listen. I mean, you had sent me one specifically that was a real tearjerker, and I appreciate that. Yeah. So who am I? You know, I'm a family man first and a businessman second. You know, I've been married for about 14 and a half years. I have a 12 and a half year old daughter. I love my family and family time. And I'm a guy that has spent countless years in the investing and entrepreneurial space. And I've had some fun building companies, buying companies, selling companies. But really what I spend most of my time on today is teaching people the strategies, the mechanics, just everything around building passive income and really like covering your life's expenses with assets that have some form of cash flow so you can truly buy your time back and you can become what we call lifestyle investors. I think when you solve the financial equation and you don't have to make money, you get to make money. Everything changes. You don't have to work, but you get to work. And that is just such a rewarding place to be. And we've seen countless people in our community achieve lifestyle investor status, which is really cool. And I just think optionality happens. You have more options, you have better options. And this is for, you know, just living a good life. You know, family dynamics and personal side, you just have better options. And then professionally, you make better decisions for your business or inside the business that you're part of.
Yeah, Justin, I'm super curious to dig into the heart behind what you just said. And one question that I have for you is, once people reach the point of financial freedom, when they finally have the margin and security that they've been working towards, what do you see shift in them?
Well, I think often you see this scarcity mindset around money evaporate. And you know, I think that as Christians, we're called to be generous. We're called to tithe, regardless of what our income is. But what I find is that really, like when you solve that financial equation and you are living life abundantly with passive income, you don't rely on your job or your business. I find it really opens people up to be more generous. I mean, now you have this surplus income. So for me, I worked really hard to get, to a certain level of passive income, but then everything over lifestyle surplus income. So, for most of my life, I worked really hard to save, 15 or 20 or 25% of what I made. So that way, I'd be set up whenever I wanted to retire. And years ago, I just, following the people that I follow, having some of the mentors that I have, the peer group that I've been blessed to be in and around, I've just learned that instead of building up net worth, like financial freedom is so much greater, than net worth, right? Net worth is some arbitrary number. It is often, not exactly precise. It's a lot more subjective. People can create different values around things, especially their primary business. And I think financial freedom, like I was financially free before I was ever a millionaire. And that opened up a whole new world for me. And so, when you get past that to surplus income, well, now all of a sudden 100% of what's coming in can either go to impact, whether it be impact investing, compounding wealth, charitable endeavors. And I find that people, at least in our community, the people that I know, the best, they are more and more generous and see the extra income that's coming in as a blessing that they want to, really pay forward to others who are less fortunate.
Well, man, I love that. And I've been blessed to have the privilege of sitting in on some of the things you've taught at. You've given me that privilege, which I appreciate. And it's just amazing, the conversations there, the people in the room, the journey they've navigated. I've been blessed to read your book. In fact, before I came on with Love Justice, I had read it 2 years prior.
Oh, that's cool.
And so when I found out you were a partner and connected with us, I thought, oh, like Justin Donald, lifestyle investor, and so I've given your book to my brother-in-law, my brother, my oldest son. I just really appreciate the experience you've had, the things you've learned, the way you teach it to others. And so in your experience, what are some of the obstacles that you notice people have to overcome to get into that place where they're financially free and really able to deploy it meaningfully?
Well, thanks, Jason. I'm really humbled to hear that. And it's an honor to have you passing along my book. And as you guys know, all the proceeds of the Lifestyle Investor do go to fight human trafficking. They're really just two primary organizations that we love to support. And it's so meaningful to me that I think God's blessed this book to become a #1 Wall Street Journal bestseller and USA Today bestseller. But as of 2023, it's become a top 1% of all books ever sold. And so it's really created some powerful impact, even beyond those that have read it and the things that they've implemented. For most people, I think the obstacle is change. It's doing things different than what they were doing before or how they were raised in doing it. Most people don't have, formal education really doesn't teach you much around investing, around compounding wealth. It really doesn't even teach you much around saving money, to be quite frank. And so most parents aren't good at it. Like I think of my parents, and that was not a strength of theirs. So I did not learn much of my financial education from them. I certainly learned some valuable lessons from, hard work to living within your means or beneath your means. And I'm thankful for that. But for most people, they stop their formal education, or they stop education when it's formally done, right? When they graduate high school or graduate college. And then that's it. Maybe some people go on to a technical major or continuing education, but then there's generally a stop at that point. And I just think the longer we outsource our financial education to other people, the more we enrich other people. And the more opportunity we create to be taken advantage of potentially too, for people to make decisions that are in their best interest, not our best interest. And so I learned through some hardships, through losing money, through having an advisor that did not have my best interests, through insurance companies and really like investment companies and groups that kind of manipulate the financials to make them look better than they are. And I found myself in a situation where I was losing money, even though the statements coming made it seem like I was making money, because they would talk about average rate of returns and not actual rate of returns. And so I think the moment that people can start bringing in-house their financial education and saying, hey, this is just something I need to learn. And maybe there's no formal education, so I'm going to go to some informal education. I'm going to learn by utilizing, Chat GPT or Grok, or I'm going to learn by going to a seminar or joining a mastermind. That, I think, is where people can level up. But for me, the biggest obstacle is just change. It's doing things different than the way you've done it. And it is hard for a lot of people that have built a routine or a standard or a ritual around the way they're doing it now. It is just really hard to pivot and make that move. And that's why I think mentors and peer group are so important, because they can help pull us along in the right direction, especially when they have the experience themselves firsthand over a long track record.
Yeah, Justin, that was something that stood out to me when I was looking up on you a little bit, because I had not known about The Lifestyle Investor. Jason did not give me that book.
Come on, Jason.
It was like,
That's my bad. My bad.
And that was something.
To be fair, where she lives is across an ocean from where I live. So, but I need to drop it in the mail to her. That's what I need to do.
Yeah. And that was something that stuck out to me, just learning about the community that you have, is that it is a community. And like, there was something that either you or one of your peers said of like, I always come into these types of conversations as a student, because I never know the full scope of what there is to know about this world. But it's a community that we strengthen one another. And I really, really loved that, and have been thinking about that all day, in multiple different contexts. Like, how true is that in multiple different contexts, and not just finances? But that, speaking of that community and being a student, I really love that, and it stuck out. But if we could shift gears for just a minute, I would love to hear you talk about the parallels that you see between vetting a financial investment and evaluating a nonprofit or ministry. Are there patterns, instincts, frameworks from investing that you carry over when you're deciding, or your community is deciding, what mission-driven work is worth supporting?
Yeah, it's a great question. And I do think there are a lot of similarities in, vetting a deal versus vetting a nonprofit. And just like in, what I teach our lifestyle investor community is that most deals are bad deals. Most of them do not work out. You really need to get good at finding the right operators and finding the right teams. The jockey matters a lot more than the business or the asset that you're investing in. And I think that is the same with nonprofits, that unfortunately there are a lot of bad ones out there. And, it stings because it rubs off on the good ones. And, obviously the good ones can separate themselves, and there are ways to be able to tell, and we can talk about that. But I generally, in investing, tell people, especially entrepreneurs. Entrepreneurs are like eternal optimists. Like, they can figure everything out. They're going to make it happen. And by the way, people that run nonprofits are entrepreneurs, right? They think, hey, I'm going to solve every problem. We're going to figure it out. This horrible thing happened. We're going to get through it. But on the flip side, to be a good investor, you got to start the opposite. You got to start and say, hey, this deal's probably not a good deal. And it's not a good deal unless I can prove otherwise. And so you start at a no, not a yes. As an entrepreneur, you start as a yes. And so I think with nonprofits, like I'm part of, with an investment, I'm vetting the track record of the sponsor. I'm vetting how long they've been in the business, how many years, how long it takes for a deal to go full cycle, how many deals have gone full cycle. Did they hit the numbers that they projected to hit from their original pro forma, not marked up ones that they change over time? And I think the same is true also on the nonprofit side. You've got a lot of these nonprofits that really spend all the money or a lot of the money on staff or admin or excessive things. and the dollars don't actually make it to the ministry that they're promoted to make it to. And so, looking under the hood, I think is really important. I love what you guys do and what you're up to. And part of the reason why I want to be a partner with you is because I think you guys are a great organization. The vast majority of the dollars go to actually rescuing people, real lives, saving real lives. And I love that you guys have, trackers of how many lives you've saved, in a given month, quarter, year. With real stories, real situations. You have a podcast walking people through actually what's happening with firsthand encounters. And so I do think it's harder and harder to find the good ministries and the good nonprofits out there that are doing the work they say they're doing. But vetting, I do think it's important to vet a nonprofit the way, or similarly to the way you would vet a deal, to make sure your dollars are going to where you intend them to go.
You've seen the headlines. You've heard the stories. Children are being trafficked every single day, and everything in you says this has to stop. But rescuing kids after exploitation is never enough. If it were your child, would you sleep soundly knowing that they might be found after being taken? Or would you want to know that they were never taken at all? At Love Justice, we've spent the past 20 years building a proven model to stop trafficking before it happens. Training local monitors, intercepting at key border points, and reuniting kids with their families. We can do this for $112 per person intercepted. But there are more borders, more children, more lives at risk than we can reach right now. That's where you come in. Join Project Beautiful, our monthly giving community, and stop trafficking before it starts. Visit projectbeautiful.org.
One of the cool things about your mastermind is you not only teach people the hard lessons you've learned, you even invite them together to experience things, right? Whether it's experiencing a deal or together, or experiencing a cause together, or even experiencing some really fun trips together. I love the community that you built around that. As you guys even think about what deals or what nonprofits to put before the group, like what do you consider? What do you think about in the sense of, like, if you had to really brass tacks it down and say, we really look for these things? You kind of said it there, but just honing in on that, building on what you just said.
Well, let me go deep for a moment into something that I had a mentor tell me. So I'm not sure if you guys are familiar with David Green and all the great work he's done with Hobby Lobby and his charitable organizations. He has just been just an incredible godsend for me. And I just think he's one of the wisest people alive today. And he had said that if you really want to become radically generous, and not just generous because that's how you are raised, like I feel like I've been able to, like, I've been charitable and giving and tithing for enough years that's routine and that's habit, but that doesn't mean that I need to be limited to that number. And so in talking to David Green, it's like, well, how do you go from being generous to radically generous? That guy has given away 50% of the profits of Hobby Lobby to kingdom work, philanthropic work, for like 50 years or 45 years, something crazy like that. And from a textbook standpoint, like his business shouldn't work. Like, you shouldn't be able to give 50% of your profits every year and still be growing and be the biggest powerhouse in the space. And so he had said, well, if you want to be radically generous, find the thing that breaks your heart more than anything and get involved. And so for me, when I thought about, like, what's the worst thing that can happen to me? Well, the worst thing that could happen to me is actually not to me. The worst thing that could happen to me is someone in my family, most specifically my daughter, right? And for anyone that has kids, the pain of their struggles, their injuries, when they get sick, like it is so much worse. Like, any parent would say, hey, I would take that on myself to alleviate, my child from going through this. So to me, that's anything that could happen to a child is like the worst thing. And so part of what I look for is that, because that can allow me to be more centralized in my focus, with the goal of being more generous than just what I feel obligated to give. But then part of it is like, how does the team work together, and how is their reporting? Like, is it strong reporting? Do they have good communication with their partners? What type of work, where, what percentage of the dollars raised goes to the staff versus the actual charitable endeavors or philanthropic endeavors, the actual mission that they are set upon. So those are all things that I look at, and you guys just pass with flying colors. And that's why you have so many great supporters and partners and even big companies. I first learned about you guys from N2 Publishing, and I think the world of Earl and Dwayne, and they're just wonderful humans, wonderful entrepreneurs. And I know they did a deep dive on you guys, and their deep dive is a lot more robust than mine. And so it was great when ours could match up and things look good. And I could just feel great about not only supporting you on my end, but actually shouting your name from the rooftops to anyone that will listen, that if you don't have a place, if you want to be charitable and you don't know where to be charitable, take a look at Love Justice International.
Yeah, we really appreciate that, Justin. I mean, just for our listeners, we did not pay Justin to say that. This is definitely just, I think, coming from his heart and just the conviction that he feels. But I have to brag on John, to be honest with you, the founder and CEO. And Justin, I've been with Love Justice for 10 years now. It'll be 10 years in November.
Wow.
Crazy long. And I remember being with John on this journey of impact on the dollar. And it just became so clear and such a conviction for him that just like we would in a business, like you're marking the success of a business on their in like ROI, right? And
Yep.
why not apply that same principle to nonprofits? In fact, we should. We absolutely should. And that is, as donors, no matter where you're giving, no matter if it's Love Justice or any other organization, we should care about impact on the dollar.
Yes.
And not very many people are doing that. Based on the research that we found. And John just is like, this is so important because lives depend on it. And that ties into what we call internally as the brokenhearted anointing. That brokenhearted anointing that unleashes grace to be a part of this work in really meaningful ways, whether it's giving a lot of money or working on the front lines. It's that brokenhearted anointing that really takes us farther beyond than any whim of passion, right? Because that brokenhearted anointing is like really coming from the Holy Spirit. So it's just really encouraging to hear you as a donor articulate values that we have, probably not even knowing that we had some of those values, or maybe not even knowing the depth of them, which is just really, really cool for someone on the program side to hear articulated from the donor side. Can you, Justin, talk about the role of community when it comes to investing? How does that and could that apply for investing in nonprofit work?
Well, I do think that more smart people with a diverse range of experience are going to help create, better ideas, better due diligence. Just the collective community is so much wiser than the single person. And so I think when you put several smart minds together, the outcome can be exponential. It's not a linear thing. I mean, part of the reason why I moved my business from one-on-one coaching is that was very linear. It was one person to one person. The reason that I expanded and kind of pivoted to more of a mastermind structure is now, we've got 100, 115 people that all get to know one another and all get to vet deals together and give their feedback with industry experts or people that have real life experience. And the same is true when you bring in different groups that are charitable organizations, and you're trying to figure out the same thing. They ask great questions that maybe you wouldn't have thought of yourself. But when you hear it, you're like, ooh, that's a good question. I should have thought of that one. So I just think more minds create better outcomes. And really, the more diverse the group is, all across the board, the more I think smart or wise the group becomes, the less likely that you get caught in groupthink. And I just think doing life with people is one of the most meaningful things like that. Having real relationships with people that, I always talk about. I want to do business with people I want to do life with. And that goes for same thing in the charitable arena, right? I want to support groups like yours with people that I want to do life with and people I want to do business with. And the community effect is powerful.
So good. So I'm someone that's looking at wanting an ROI on the investments I make in deals. I want also an ROI on the nonprofits and causes that I give into. And I really want to grow in gaining more of that financial freedom and being able to have that level of generosity that even you described, that David Green inspired you and so many others to, right? And like, what do you suggest to that person, that young person, or maybe they're even an older guy like me who's going, you know what, I'm now figuring out what this actually means. What are just some simple things you say to them to help them get that ROI that they're searching for?
Yeah, it's one of those things where younger people with less life experience think that happiness is going to come from more money. What they will soon realize is that the more money comes and the goalposts move, and it's not bringing, there's all these studies that like over a certain amount of income, there's no additional, happiness that comes from it. And so, there's only so much that you earn that puts you in a position where maybe you're able to live life. And so fulfillment's not going to come from money, surprise, surprise. And this is, unfortunately, most people have to do it themselves to figure that out. And I hope that for those of you that are chasing the big raise, chasing the big exit, I hope that you don't put too much value in what you think you're going to get from it, because whenever that time comes, it's really cool in that moment. And then a week or a month later, it's like, okay, what's next? It doesn't show up the way you think it will. It doesn't feel the way you think it will. And that's because money's never going to truly fulfill you, and so, I'm thankful that I've learned this, and I did learn it early on. And part of it is just from having parents that were very biblical and really teaching early on that, your relationship with God, your desire to serve people, like that is where fulfillment comes from. And so to just chase money, just chase the returns on the investments, it's never going to provide what you think that it is. And even with a good monetary output or production, it's going to leave you feeling still empty because that doesn't fill the void. And so I do think there needs to be this aspect of what you're doing that has meaningful impact, because your fulfillment is going to come from your relationships. And it's going to come from the impact that you have, knowing that you're playing a bigger role than just you. And what is that greater purpose that you can serve? Finding that purpose, finding why you're here on earth. And so I think it's a valiant effort to be really striving for the ROI in both. So I'm not telling you for a second to not be getting in a good financial position and getting a good return on your dollars. I want to be a good steward of my money. I don't want to lose money. But any good investor is going to lose money at some point in time. And that's where most of the lessons are learned. But I can assure you the money that I have given, the time that I have given, and the relationships that I have built are far more fulfilling than any dollars I've ever made. And that becomes more and more true the more money you make.
Yeah, that's so good and so rooted in scripture. And it means a lot coming from like you yourself saying, like, I've been there and it wasn't enough. And I'm curious, and kind of playing off that response, what do you think is the right lens for evaluating impact, especially when those outcomes aren't financial, right? Like particularly in the giving space, but the outcomes are rather eternal or justice related. Like I'd just be curious to hear, yeah, what you think is the right lens for thinking about some of those things.
Well, I think it's a personal thing. I think it's individualized, and it's getting clear on the gifts that you've been given. Are you using those to better the world, to advance the kingdom? Are you showing up in a way that serves beyond just you and your family? I do think that there are ways you can measure it. You can have goals. I mean, I've had a giving goal, and when I can achieve that giving goal, I do feel good. Like that's a fulfilling goal, a more fulfilling goal than maybe like a health goal or a business goal or a finance goal. I like that you guys really quantify the dollars in. X amount of dollars saves X amount of lives, or each life. I'm trying to remember your number. I think it was like, something low is like $20 to $40 saves, a life or a handful of lives. It's like, wow, well, now I can actually create some goals around how many children I want to save, or how many people I want to have an impact on. And yeah, I mean, I think that that's where you kind of got to dig in deep and figure out what is the impact that you want to have. But I can assure you that when you spend your treasures, time and money and talents, in things that have real world impact, that is fulfilling, and that will create so much. Just it creates a spark. It creates just this compounding effect, and it's really powerful and palpable.
So good. Yeah, I want to pivot a little bit, and from, I think, one of the questions that we had planned here, and nuance it a little bit differently even than what is listed out here, just based on what you just said. I mean, I think it's interesting because a lot of nonprofits, our founder, we all jokingly, in a loving way, we'll tease him every now and then because he so believes in impact, and is so and is quick to say to any other organization out there, prove your impact, right? Like, which I love about him. And we also joke with him a little bit about it, because you know how that is when you really believe in what you're doing. Sometimes you can think, man, who else is having impact like this? We are having impact, and we are. I think that's what's crazy, is we actually have things that are demonstrating that we are having impact. And so we communicate that, and we talk about that, and we help people know those stories. You have been a partner in that and a supporter in that. And so, like, when you think about, and I'm asking this more just for those out there that might be saying, you know what, I'm looking for the right nonprofit to support. Talk on both vantage points there. Like, what would you say to the nonprofit? Hey, you should be saying this, right? And what would you say to that donor? Hey, pay attention to this. Like, and I'm not just trying to get you to repeat what you've already said, like specific to how those two connect.
Yeah, here's one way I look at it. In the world of business, it can be pretty cutthroat, and it's like every man for himself, every woman for herself, every business for themselves. Let's build the biggest skyscraper, and along the way, let's tear down everyone else's skyscraper. Okay. The way to get ahead is to undercut other people or other businesses. I see this a lot in the nonprofit space as well, unfortunately, where groups are in the same space, but they'll badmouth another group. And I think that's the worst way to get ahead collectively. And so, I'm in the mastermind space. So people all the time will say, like, well, tell me about this mastermind, and how is yours compared to theirs? I don't ever want to badmouth someone else's mastermind. I think masterminds are a great thing. I want to build a city of really tall skyscrapers of a lot of great masterminds. And even if someone's not joining mine, I want them to know they're doing a good thing because they're getting around people that are going to help them learn and grow. And so I kind of look at like nonprofits that same way, where it's like, how can we support all the other nonprofits? How can we talk positively about them? How can we partner with them? How can we offer our resources to help their endeavors? Because I do think that the more nonprofits work together, the better the outcomes for all the nonprofits in that sector, or just in general, right? I mean, that's how I look at masterminds. I'm like, I want them all to thrive, because more people knowing about them, that's a good thing. Everyone wins. And so I think you guys do a really good job partnering with other groups, or being, saying complimentary things about other organizations. I think that's important. I also think it shows confidence in what you're doing and the impact that you're having. And to the person that is donating and giving, it's that same thing. Is like, what type of group do you want to be giving to? Do you want to be giving to people that practice what they preach? Do you want to give to people that they themselves are out there doing the hard work? Do you want to give to the groups that have a track record? Do you want to give to the groups that are really rescuing the most vulnerable people worldwide? That to me is where I want my resources to go.
Yeah, what I hear you saying, Justin, is confidence, but complementing and complementarian in that space of having confidence in your model and your work, while also building other people up in that. And I think that's really good. And like you said, so important. I'm curious, when you think about like in investing, I'm sure you've got like different dashboards and, like all the wide range of investing. You could have different tools and different metrics and all these things that you can dig into. When you think about nonprofit work, like what is your ideal metrics dashboard, if you will? Is it stories? Is it numbers? Is it evidence? Like what would be your ideal, metrics?
I would say yes. The answer is all of the above. I mean, I want to see as much evidence as I can. I want to see as much data as I can. I definitely want the stories. The stories matter. The stories stick. The stories themselves can be the most powerful part of it. So it's got to be storytelling. It's got to be sharing real life experiences. But I want the financials to back it up. And I want people that have the heart, a heart like Jesus at the helm, running things with a track record of doing the right thing and being fiscally responsible and being morally responsible. And I want to see that the organization, that there is great leadership across the board, not just a great leader or not just a great spokesperson, but many great leaders, that there's depth. But the story to me is the hook, and the better stories you can tell, the more stories you can tell. I think that's the biggest opportunity.
I love that. So speaking of story, can I ask you, as we are moving toward wrapping up here, can I ask you to tell two stories? One, you've dedicated Lifestyle Investor, the book, to giving, toward giving the profits, the proceeds that come in to fight human trafficking. And that's Love Justice. Obviously, that's who we are, what we do. You've dedicated it to organizations that fight human trafficking, and we're grateful. We're one of the grateful recipients of that. I'd love to hear a story of you've heard of someone who's read your book, because it has done so well. Someone who's read your book, who's been moved into financial freedom and generosity, and it moved you. You were impacted by it. And I'd love to hear a story of how, even in giving to us, how it's mattered to you, how it's had impact on you.
Well, in giving to you, it's so easy, because every time you send your quarterly newsletters out, I just read them and I'm like, it brings tears to my eyes. It's beautiful. It's sad and it's harsh and it's horrible on like one end of the spectrum, and it's beautiful and it's redeeming and it's glorious on this other side of the spectrum. And so it's like this wave of emotions, and to know that I'm part of something, a group much bigger than me, doing things not just where I live, but all across the world and 30 plus countries. Like it moves me. I mean, I can't do this. I'm not equipped for this. Like, even emotionally, I don't think I'm equipped. Like, I don't believe I could do it. I believe I would break down or turn into rage. Like, I don't think I'm emotionally able to handle the highs and lows that you guys go through. And so it's very rewarding seeing the work that you're doing. And on the personal side, I mean, we have countless people over the years that, I mean, part of the reason that the Lifestyle Investor, the book and the podcast has become, each of them has become as big as they are. I mean, the podcast is the top 1% of all downloaded podcasts in all categories. And part of the reason for that, and we had you guys on, I interviewed one of your leaders, and it was fantastic. But part of the reason that that's happened is because people have shared their story of learning and growth and financial freedom, and it's a lot of it has gone viral online. But we have people that are near and dear to my heart inside our community that have just done wonderful things. We've got a guy in our community. His name's Asim, and he's just this wonderful human being, just got a heart of gold. And when we first started working with him, he had $0 in passive income. And I remember when he did his first deal that created some cash flow, and it wasn't a lot of cash flow. He didn't put in a lot of money. And at that time, he didn't have a lot of money, but it covered his Netflix subscription. And as funny as that sounds, he celebrated the heck out of that. In fact, he shared that on a podcast episode I did with him. And I just thought that is the coolest thing. But now fast forward 7 years later, 6 or 7 years, I think it's 7 years later, he's now making $1 million a year in passive income. So he doesn't have to do anything. He doesn't have to touch a thing, do a single amount of work, lift a pencil to make $1 million a year, over $1 million in passive income. That's what he did in 6 to 7 years inside of our community. And I get texts and emails and voice notes and voicemails from him all the time about the impact that our groups had, our members have had, that I've had, that the book or the podcast has had. And that to me is the most rewarding work, because I'm not, I don't maximize for the dollars. Like, the dollar at a certain point, more money doesn't do anything, right? I mean, you can be more generous, but it doesn't move the needle. The testimonials that we get, the testimonials I've heard and read that people have shared with me, those are the most meaningful thing. Like, that is why I do the work that I do. That is so much rewarding to me than any extra amount of dollars coming in. And so, yeah, that really is my true motivator.
There's so much that I resonate with that too, Justin, of like, what are the stories that really drive why you do what you do? And I promise you will hear from me within the week, because I want to find a story of a child that is your daughter's age, that our teams were at the right place at the right time, because that level of like connection is just insane. And I say that because I like you getting energy from those stories. I also heard a story of a 5-year-old boy in Zambia who was abducted when he was playing with his friends. A bus driver saw him, and 2 suspects tipped off our monitors. They went and interacted with the 2 suspects and the boy. And in his local language, he said, "I want my grandmother." He had no idea where he was going. He was scared. And our team was there. Our team was there. And my son is 5 years old. I cannot. And you can save someone's life at Love Justice. And I think that that's such, like, I'm not even speaking on this because I work for Love Justice. Like, I'm a donor too. Even if I work for this organization. And it's those types of stories that are like, man, if I had the passive income, like $1 million, I can't even begin to fathom how life-changing that would be in the world of fighting the world's greatest injustices. So I hope that our listeners donors, volunteers, prospective donors who are thinking about where to invest their money, I hope they're just really encouraged by this and really just glean from the wealth of wisdom that you brought to this conversation, Justin. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, thanks for having me. If anyone wants to learn more about what we're doing, go to lifestyleinvestor.com. And for anyone, in fact, I'd love to do this for your audience. Generally, we do these strategy sessions with people where we basically help them figure out how to go from point A to point B. And they're $500 a session. But I'd like to offer any of your audience a free consultation. So if you go to lifestyleinvestor.com/consultation, someone on our team will meet with you one-on-one and really share next steps. And for anyone that sounds too intimidating, go to lifestyleinvestor.com/roadmap. We've built out our passive income roadmap with calculators and everything built around the formulas and asset allocations of the wealthiest people. Think single family office, billionaire types, because most people don't. We want to democratize the world of investing like a billionaire so that regular everyday people can do it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Generous. That's so generous, Justin. Thank you.
Very generous. And we'll put all of the podcast link, the book link, the 2 links you just mentioned. We'll put those in the show notes as well. And again, Justin, you are, Hannah may not know this, but Steve, when I came on, Steve Mortland, who you know, and I know you love Steve.
Steve.
He said to me, of anyone in our donor community, anyone who's a partner with us, no one champions us like Justin.
That's so kind.
And thank you. Thank you big time.
Well, thank you all for everything you do. Thank you, Steve, for the kind words. Hopefully you get a chance to check out this podcast session because you're an amazing guy and I've loved getting to know you. And keep up the great work. We need more people and groups and organizations like you out there doing the good work.
We are grateful for the generous support of the Love Justice community. Please consider joining our family of donors. Learn more at lovejustice.ngo.